Will democracy survive in the next couple of years?
Essentially, we are the same.
There are so many needs that Minnesota has.
What people are saying they need right now.
Access to Democracy is made possible in part by a donation from Firefly Credit Union. Firefly is the new name of U.S. Federal Credit Union, which has proudly served the financial needs of the greater Twin Cities community since 1925. At Firefly, we guide our members forward and give them the power to chase dreams by delivering the financial solutions they need to get ahead. From checking accounts to mortgages, we'll light the way. We are Firefly Credit Union, and this is life illuminated. By Thomson Reuters, providing legal professionals with intelligence, technology, and human expertise they need to find trusted answers. Thomson Reuters, the answer company. Online at thomsonreuters.com. And Dr. Charles Crutchfield of award-winning Crutchfield Dermatology in Eagan. Acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians, a Minnesota native who trained at the Mayo Clinic, Dr. Crutchfield personally treats all patients and states that experience counts and quality matters. Crutchfield Dermatology, look good, feel great, with beautiful skin.
Welcome. Access to Democracy returns. Alan Miller with you, and we have a return guest who's got so much going on this year that it is beyond exciting. Welcome back to Brian Freeman, the author, the novelist, and he has literally just been born again, and we'll talk about that. It's not often that we have somebody who was born again, but in this case, it's Jason Bourne.
Exactly, that's right.
A little bit of background on Brian, although he's been with us before, but he's the winner this year of the Minnesota Book Award. We have some of his books there and one Jason Bourne book up on display. He won for Best Hardcover Novel with Spilled Blood. He was a finalist for Thriller Awards with The Burying Place. He's a two-time finalist, Best Audiobook. And he's got another audiobook coming out, by the way, which we'll talk about. Thriller Suspense, both The Bone House and Season of Fear. Five-time finalist for the Minnesota Book Award, and just won this year. Winner, Best First Novel, McCavity Awards. Finalist, Best First Novel for the Edgar, the Dagger, the Barry, and the Anthony Awards with the novel Immoral. And on the seventh day, he rested.
I don't know. Not a lot of rest around here.
Well, especially not this year.
That's for sure.
You've got actually 3 books slated within the next year.
I do, yeah. It's going to be a busy season. The readers are always asking me to up my pace, and I've been listening to them and trying to do that. So I've actually got an audiobook original out on June 20th, and then next year I'll have 3 novels coming out during the course of the year.
And out right now is Alter Ego, which is over here closest to you, and that's another Jonathan Stride book.
Yes, set up in Duluth, that's right.
And right, with his partner Maggie.
Yeah.
And that was actually almost a Me Too book that preceded the Me Too really noise and news that's been going on. Because
I had the idea for a Jonathan Stride thriller in Duluth based on the idea of a movie being made around one of Stride's old cases. I thought that kind of little nudge to the film agents out there, and so I put the whole book together, and it revolves around this actor who is playing Stride in the movie, kind of his alter ego, and this actor has some dark secrets that he needs to hide, and I turned in
actually
the manuscript.
In your books,
everyone has
dark secrets. That's one of the
true.
things that makes the most attractive.
That is true. So I turned in Alter Ego, and about 2 weeks after I had submitted the manuscript, all of the Harvey Weinstein craziness broke open in the press, and I had my editor on the phone calling me and saying, "Well, did you know something?" So it's like, no, I literally had this idea in mind for a few years, but in the wake of all that, it it sort of became the first thriller of the Me Too generation.
So Harvey Weinstein was really the Me Too, and you were there first.
Yeah, there we go.
Now, earlier this year, you had The Crooked Street come out.
Yes,
And
yes.
that's a Frost Easton book.
Right, right.
Now, Frost Easton has not had as many books as Jonathan Stride.
He's a younger, newer hero, that's right. And he is set actually out in San Francisco. It's kind of a homecoming for me because I grew up in the Bay Area.
He's a homicide investigator.
Yes,
Right.
yes, exactly. And The Voice Inside, which was the second Frost Easton book that came out last year, that's the one that won the Minnesota Book Award this year. I thought it was kind of strange to win the Minnesota Book Award for a San Francisco book, but I won't complain. That was wonderful.
Well,
So-
that's true. It's unusual. But you've been up 5 times for
I
that.
have, yeah, and
Minnesota,
actually,
which is incredible.
I actually think 4 of the 5 times it was for my books set outside Minnesota. So, and then The Crooked Street is the latest Frost Easton book that just came out in January.
Now, Frost Easton is a very interesting character because he lives in a house in San Francisco with his cat, Shaq.
Yes.
But it's not really his cat, Shaq.
Yeah, yeah.
Shaq owns the house.
Shaq owns the house. Yeah, he's kind of Frost's landlord. I just loved kind of playing around with the craziness of the San Francisco housing prices and giving Frost a place to live that certainly nobody that could outside of the Silicon Valley rich could afford. And as it turns out, Shaq the cat, his previous owner. Had been murdered, and Frost was the one that caught the case. And the police came in, and the cat was guarding the body, wouldn't let anyone close to it. And Frost sat down, started talking to the cat, and Shaq wandered over and climbed up on his shoulder. And after that, they were inseparable. And Frost finds out that there was a strange little provision in the woman's will that whoever adopted Shaq would get to live in that house
this
for
lovely,
$1 a
lovely
year.
house. Yes,
exactly.
yes. And,
So that's how Frost ends up on Russian Hill.
And he's an interesting character because he's in love with his brother's fiancée.
Yeah, that's a little tricky, isn't
It's,
it?
and that gets resolved. His brother is a well-known chef.
Right,
and
right.
Well-known chef from a
From a food truck, actually.
A food
very,
truck.
A very
yeah,
San
that's-
Francisco sort of character,
And
exactly.
somebody staggers up to his front door and says the words Lombard. So when I read it, I thought immediately of Carol Lombard, but it wasn't.
No, that's the reference to the Crooked Street.
Yeah,
and I was having a lot of fun with sort of the Sherlock Holmes Moriarty trope in the Crooked Street, and I'd thought for years I'd love to have one of my heroes sort of have his own Moriarty to face, and so that's who Lombard is in the Crooked Street. So I had a lot of fun pulling this book together.
You managed to keep Easton and Stride very different characters.
Yes. Yeah, they're. I mean, here you've got Jonathan Stride, this sort of complex, intense, weathered Duluth police lieutenant, very much a northern Minnesota character.
Yeah, he is an actual policeman.
Yes,
as opposed to Frost Easton, who's a homicide investigator, whatever that means.
And Frost, younger, kind of more of a Boy Scout, single, and he's a very different kind of character than Stride, and that for me as the author that makes it fun because I can tell different stories in the Frost Easton world than I would in the Jonathan Stride world, and vice versa.
And now we have an audiobook coming out where the main character is a police lieutenant female.
Yeah, I have, audiobooks have become the fastest growing segment in the publishing industry, and so I was approached by Audible to write an original story for them. That comes out on June 20th. It's called The Deep, Deep Snow. And it's a standalone mystery. One of my favorite things of anything I've written. I just love this book. The Deep, Deep Snow revolves around 10 years in the life of a young female sheriff's deputy in
Shelby Lake.
Shelby Lake, in an unnamed part of the
Although
Midwest.
I haven't seen any advances on it, but I did do a little research
yes,
on it.
you did indeed. So Shelby is the sheriff's deputy. Her father is the sheriff, and there's a child that disappears at the beginning of the book, and the mystery ripples through all the 10
Shelby
years in
herself
between.
was kidnapped as a child, was she not?
She was left behind on
is that
someone's
it?
doorstep. doorstep, and that's where her father, the sheriff, actually found her and adopted her. And so it gives her an interesting personal background and sort of an emotional stake in this kind of
She wants to
disappearing
find
child
out what
case.
happened to
Yes.
this young 10-year-old boy who was riding his bicycle home and suddenly disappeared.
Exactly. And it's a first-person narration, so it's the first time I've done a mystery or thriller in first person, and Audible has brought in a wonderful actress named January Lavoie, who's a former audiobook narrator of the year, and she's done Coben's books and Connolly's and Patterson's, and she's doing the narration on The Deep, Deep Snow. So it comes out June 20th. June 20th, it's actually going to be the Audible daily deal, which they've never done before. On launch day, it'll be the daily deal. So I'm very excited to have that book out there, and me personally, I'm looking forward to listening to January's narration of the book.
So January is coming out in June.
January's coming out in June. That's
Okay,
right.
June 20th. And the promo for this book says, "Everyone has secrets. Dark secrets."
Yeah, that sounds familiar, doesn't it?
And,
Yeah, seems like there's a lot of secrets in my books. Yeah.
And well, that's what makes them as popular as they are.
It's always nice to kind of try to peer behind the curtain and see what people are hiding.
And of course, the most exciting thing to me, I don't know about to you, but was to pick up the paper one day and read that Brian Freeman has been selected to continue the Jason Bourne series.
Yeah, that's just
Robert Ludlum, who
Yes.
passed some years ago, and you're actually starting another Jason Bourne book.
Yeah, it's such an amazing honor. I was such a huge fan of Ludlum's books growing up. I can remember, I think I was 13 years old, and I bought a copy of the Chancellor manuscript in paperback at a drugstore in California. And I was literally reading it as I walked out of the store, and I don't think I put it down for 10 hours until I was finished. And I remember thinking back then, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to be able to have that impact on readers and tell those kinds of stories. So all these years later,
Well,
here I am taking over
that way, though. You started out really at Carleton College.
Yeah.
Not sure what you wanted to do when you grew up.
Well, I always knew I wanted to write books. I've been writing books since literally since the 8th grade, and so the fact that I've now been in the business for 15 years, I think I have 17 books out in the market now. It really has been a dream come true these past couple of decades to have the opportunity to do what I've wanted to do my whole life, and to take over a legacy
how
like
did you
Ludlum's
end
is
up at a law
extraordinary.
firm after college?
It was a while. I had a lot of sordid jobs in the middle. I worked at some nonprofit institutions and colleges around here, and then I wound up going to what was then Faegre and Benson. Now it's Faegre Baker Daniels as their director of marketing and public relations. And so I spent a lot of time kind of turning legalese into English, and
You were writing all the time.
writing all the time, and
really getting a lot of life experience
Yeah.
in different areas.
Sure, and you learn a lot from the litigators about telling stories. I remember one litigator talking about the fact that the lawyer that wins at trial is the lawyer that tells the best story, and so litigators tend to be great storytellers, and I learned a lot being at the firm.
Well, the voice inside also had certainly areas of law there, because it was Frost Easton who felt compelled to admit that they had bad evidence that sent a
Yes.
man to jail, and the man was a killer
Yeah.
of his own sister,
Right,
as a matter of
who
fact.
ends up back on the streets because Frost exposes the lie that put him in prison. And I like coming up both with those kind of sort of ripped from the headlines kinds of stories, as well as these morally complex issues. I don't like to deal with sort of black and white issues. I like my heroes to have to deal with moral issues that challenge them and that don't have easy answers.
So Putnam now has the Jason Bourne books.
Yes.
And tell us how it came about that of all the writers who were really clamoring
Yeah.
to continue the Jason Bourne series, they found Brian Freeman. No surprise to me, but I bet it was a big surprise to you.
It was. Putnam took over the Ludlum franchise last fall, acquired the rights to do 2 Jason Bourne novels, and they put out the word that they were looking for a new writer to take over the Bourne series. And my agent contacted me and asked if I'd be interested in having my name thrown into the ring. And I said, that would be wonderful. I'd love to take a shot at it. And that was last November, and I think about 3 months passed, and didn't hear anything, and I thought, well, they've decided to go with somebody else. And then I was actually up in Duluth for the launch of The Crooked Street, and I got a phone call from my agent saying Putnam wants you for Ludlum. And so I sat down with the editor at Putnam and came up with a new plot concept for the next Bourne novel and wrote some sample chapters and worked it all out through him, and he got the approvals from the Ludlum estate, and here we are, good to go. I'm charging ahead on the new Bourne book.
And the new Bourne book, which again will be out in 2020.
In 2020, in the summer, it's called The Bourne Conspiracy. That will be the name of the book.
And even just the title is exciting. So let's do a couple of close-ups for the viewing audience of books that you have out now. If we can bring them up on the screen, I think, I don't know which one we have first, but The Crooked Street, which is this year's book.
Yeah, I love the sort of snake image on the graffiti.
Well, The Crooked Street, yeah. And we just jumped over something in the middle there. I think it was.
Yeah, that was The Voice Inside. That's the one that won the Minnesota Book Award this year.
Okay, and next let's do a close-up. Now, it'll be Robert Ludlum's
The Bourne Conspiracy, a new Jason Bourne novel by Brian Freeman. So I'll be on the cover. That's pretty exciting.
We'll take that.
Exactly.
Interesting that authors who have passed, frequently, if they're top authors, have somebody come in and write books continuing the series.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have to say about the Ludlum books that I was not enamored with the continuing writer who took over Jason Bourne. I just never felt that he had a grasp of what Ludlum was saying. But I have no doubt, having read your books and knowing how convoluted and how involved and character-driven they are,
right, yeah.
that this is going to be an exciting experience for both readers and for you.
Well, that's what I'm hoping for, and what I'm really trying to do is go back to the roots of Jason Bourne as a character and what made him so distinctive and why he's become such an iconic hero in thriller fiction. That there's that sense of moral complexity of Bourne and the sort of fractured nature of his personality. I mean, this is a hero that has survived memory loss and essentially has sort of no past to draw on. And I think that's what makes him such an interesting, complex emotional character. And that's what I'm really trying to bring back.
And things surface all the time that strike a chord with him.
Yes, right.
But he doesn't know how to connect them up because he lost all his memory.
Right. It's sort of more like flashes out of a photo album as opposed to really being able to sort of see how his past fits together. And that's such a bold concept when Ludlum came up with the original book, The Bourne Identity. And so it's really for me an opportunity to take this character from 1980 and sort of bring him into the modern era and capture what made him so distinctive as a hero and yet put him in the modern setting with a modern plot around him.
And knowing you, we will have some interesting IT developments there, and we'll have cell phones, which weren't around in 1980, right. And websites
but still all
and
sorts
things
of great
like that.
Twists and turns. That's
and excitement.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. For me, it's fun doing. I'm simultaneously working on the Jason Bourne novel and my next Jonathan Stride novel, and obviously two very different kinds of books. I mean, my Stride books tend to be very psychologically deep, and a lot of moral complexity for Stride as a hero. And the Bourne books, they're much more action driven, and so week by week I'm sort of diving into different
I was
worlds.
just going to ask you that. Now, how do you handle 2 books at one time? Or actually, you've been handling 3 while you do
While I wrap up the edits on my next
Right.
book. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's I've never tried to do this before, but the deadlines are within a couple of weeks of each other this fall. So I really want to be able to sort of explore one for several days, get several chapters down, and then shift over to the next one, and then sort of let them both grow.
Is this sort of like a week-by-week thing?
Yeah,
This
exactly.
is a Bourne week. This is a Jonathan Stride week.
That's exactly right. Yep.
And do we ever have a Brian Freeman week where he's not knocking his brains out writing?
I don't find myself with a lot of free time these days. In fact, we've even dialed back on our events and library events and things just because there's so much work to be done. But I can't complain, and nobody would listen if I did. I'm doing what I've wanted to do my whole life. So the fact that people want me to do more of it, that's just
And
great.
you have a partner, Marcia, who
Absolutely.
is very much a partner in all of
Yep,
this.
she's a big part of the business. She handles all of the marketing side, deals with all of the libraries and bookstores when we do events. She's also my first editor and first reader, and so she's very much involved in shaping the books.
And she's got her own website.
Yeah. You can find her at facebook.com/theauthor'swife. And she kind of gives readers a behind-the-scenes look at
With
the
a
book
lot
books.
of insights into what is in this relationship and what is in this author's life.
Yes, and a lot of fun stuff. I mean, she's great about kind of finding the quirky little details of what it's like to be in this publishing world, and has a lot of fun with that. I think readers
And
would love
it's
that.
a good thing you have a partnership like that, because the demands on you, writing-wise,
Yeah.
have been so heavy. So let's take an average day for Brian Freeman.
Yeah.
He wakes up at 3 in the morning and
when I'm in the midst of the writing phase, usually I'm getting up. Marcia and I are sitting over coffee for a little while, and then it's kind of like an ordinary 9-to-5 job. I mean, I head up to my office, and usually I start by rereading and editing the work that I've done for the past couple of days. So I'm kind of constantly polishing each book as I write it, and then I'm sort of blocking out where I'm going with the next chapter, and probably most of the actual typing gets done in the afternoons when I'm actually getting the words on paper. And as I say, then the next day I kind of go back over what I've done and smooth and polish and keep it going. So.
And I bet there's no telephone or cell phone in that room.
No, I'd like to say you never have interruptions, but that's also just not the way life works. So you have to be prepared. There's always something that comes up in the publishing biz that you need to deal with. So.
And do you have a Stride book that you're finishing up now?
Yeah, I'm in the midst of a new Jonathan Stride novel right now. That'll be out in fall of 2020. It's called Funeral for a Friend, and very excited about this book. And next year's going to be a busy year. I've got the Bourne book out next summer. I've got the Stride book out next fall. And then I just wrapped up the final edits on a new standalone Minnesota thriller that will be out in January. That one, it'll give you a little tip of where the book is set by the title, because the title is Thief River Falls. And I just love this book. I just literally put the finishing touches on it, got it back into my editor yesterday, and it's a very intense, emotional mystery.
It's neither a Stride nor an Easton, though.
Right, it's a pure standalone
Or a
novel.
Shelby.
Right, exactly, pure standalone. And I love the book. I love the character in this book, and it's a very, as I say, I think it may be the most emotional book that I've written to date. So I'm very excited to get that book in the
Lead
hands of
character
readers.
is male or female?
Female again, and so once again, I suspect we'll have a female narrator when it comes to the audiobook edition of the book. So both The Deep, Deep Snow and Thief River Falls focus on female lead characters.
Now, the audiobook is out, and people go out and they buy the audio.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody like me who likes to sit down and have the book in front of me, what do I do in terms of the audiobook?
Well, hopefully, sometime next year we'll be able to bring out a print and ebook edition of The Deep, Deep Snow as well. This is an Audible original. Audible has a 6-month audio exclusive on The Deep, Deep Snow. It comes out June 20th. For the rest of the year, it's exclusively in audio. And then we're talking to a publisher right now about trying to get the print and ebook edition out. So saddle up for 2020. Could be a very, very busy year for new Brian Freeman releases.
Well, all we'll do is just sit and read Brian Freeman the whole year.
That's okay. All I've been doing is sitting and writing, so next year you can sit and read. So.
That's really fascinating, though. But, I mean, it's an incredible success story, which I think culminates in the Minnesota Book Award #1, and then being selected for the Ludlum book continuance. It's got to be so really exhilarating for you.
It really is. This has been just an extraordinary year. I'd been up for the Minnesota Book Award 4 times before, which in and of itself is an amazing honor. I mean, just to be a finalist 5 times in 15 years is pretty
especially with the caliber of the writers that
we've
have
got
here
such
in Minnesota.
We've got such an extraordinary collection of genre fiction writers in Minnesota. So to have them select the voice inside this year was amazing, and to have the news about Ludlum breaking within a couple of weeks after that, this has been truly an extraordinary year.
Kent Krieger has not been on this show yet, but David Housewright has been a regular, and David certainly is a fine writer.
He is, and he's a busy guy too.
Yes. And with 2 books a year. I don't know how you people do it with 2 books a year. But obviously, in your case, we're talking 3 or 4 books.
This year it's 3. That's a lot. That's a lot. No doubt about that.
So you have time for a personal life in addition to this?
Well, Marcia's a very kind soul, and she's very very sympathetic to the demands of what needs to get done. So that helps me a lot, because it does take a lot of time just to get that many words on paper.
It also has to be a great assist for you to have her take on so many of these responsibilities that gives you more time to write and to think and to create.
There's no way I could write the books in this kind of volume if she weren't taking up so much of the marketing responsibility and weren't so helpful on the editorial side as well. I mean, that makes a huge difference.
Well, it's really exciting.
It is. It's exciting. It's fun. As I say, I never want to complain about the volume of work, because this has really been a dream come true for me. I just love doing what I love to do.
It's self-imposed, but not only that, it has its rewards.
Yes.
Monetarily, certainly publicity-wise, and notoriety-wise, and.
My hope is that I'm working in a lot of different areas now, and with a lot of different publishers, and obviously my hope is that they all kind of feed on each other, and the more people get to know me through Frost Easton or Stride or Audible or Ludlum, that they if they enjoy whatever book they discovered through that way, they'll go out and find my other books as well.
And when you walk into the library, as I do here in Eagan, and I of course have read your books, but I look on the shelf and there's 3 or 4 copies of Alter Ego sitting there, or The Crooked Street sitting there, the 2 more recent ones, and people grab them up, they take them out. There's a waiting list for your books.
I just got an email from a reader last week who said that she thinks it's going to be a while before she reads The Crooked Street, because she was number 210 on the waiting list at the library.
We've been talking with Brian Freeman, the author of everything, and the new Robert Ludlum. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to come in here. It's really a pleasure to talk to you, and continued success.
Thank you so much, Alan. It's always a pleasure to be here.